Carlisle, Ohio, a small town located in the Dayton-Cincinnati metropolitan area. Here's a little history lesson for you. A group of East Coast settlers arrived in the late 1700s and established a community known as the Jersey Settlement. In the early 1800s, James Tapscott donated land to Baptists, who founded the Tapscott Church. Soon afterward, the community became an important railroad stop. George B. Carlisle bought the land in the area and platted the community in the mid-19th century. Eventually, the community adopted the name Carlisle and was officially incorporated in 1958. Now, let's get back to the present day. The town has a population of only 5,000 people, and you can say that nothing strange or disturbing ever happens there. Well, how wrong can you be? This particular case is all about Brooke Skylar Richardson, but the girl was known to her family and friends as her middle name, Skylar. She was born and raised in Carlisle, Ohio, and came from a family of 4. The other members of the family were her brother Jackson and their parents, Kim and Scott Richardson. If anyone would take a glance at their family, the first thing that would come to mind was that they were living a perfect life. The 4 were the picture of perfection and resembled a family that you'd only see in movies. While growing up, Skylar and her brother Jackson were both athletically inclined. He played on the high school football team, and Skylar was a cheerleader. But that's not all. She was actually the cheerleader who would be tossed up in the air whenever they would perform a routine. So, she took it very seriously. Apart from her physical abilities, Skylar also performed well when it came to her grades, and was overall a very liked student among her peers. You could say that any parent would strive to have a daughter like Skylar, who was so involved in many after-school activities and excelled at everything she did. However, things weren't as they seemed. The pressure to perform perfectly when it came to cheerleading really got to her head. Not many people knew it at the time, but she struggled with an eating disorder, wanting to keep her athletic figure by any means necessary, especially when she had to fill the role of flyer in her cheerleading squad. Bulimia took control of her life, and as stated by her parents, it represented over 90% of her life. According to her mom, the eating disorder got a hold of Skylar at about 12 years old. Kim Richardson remembers that one time, Skylar said that she didn't even want to buy gum because it had too many calories and she couldn't afford to gain weight. It was clear that her problem had to be taken seriously.
12 years old, she wouldn't buy gum because it had 5 calories. I didn't even know gum had calories.
Many people think that the eating disorder stemmed from her parents, especially her mom. Kim Richardson has been described as a vain person who cared about her image greatly, and that may have transferred to her daughter, who took it a step further. But of course, these are all speculations, or are they? On the other hand, her parents said that they did everything they could to help her. They didn't want Skylar to suffer, especially from such a young age, when she had a bright future in front of her. They took her, went to the doctor, to a number of different therapists and nutritionists, but nothing seemed to get through to the star cheerleader. Brooke Skylar Richardson was a pretty reserved person and kept most of her personal things to herself. She wasn't one to reveal much to others, not even to her parents. And we mention her private nature because it's a pretty big part of this case. Eventually, Skylar got diagnosed with body dysmorphia, and from that moment on, she was in a pretty dark place when it came to her appearance. And stemming from that, her entire life started to fall apart. She wasn't feeling like herself, and her parents were desperate that things would get worse later on, but that wasn't the case. In July of 2016, she started dating one of her friend's cousins. The boy's name was Trey, and he went to a different high school. The two dated for a short period though, and eventually they ended their relationship. Not much is known about what happened between the two. Now, let's fast forward to 2017, when Skylar had a new boyfriend. But this time, the relationship was totally different from the previous one. The boy she was dating was a junior, and the two went to the same high school. His name was Brandon, and from the looks of it, she was pretty head over heels for him, as was he. As the relationship went on, it turned out that the two were made for each other. Even her parents liked Brandon, and they strongly believed that he was a good influence on their daughter. During the time that they dated, Kim and Scott noticed that Skylar seemed much more happier than before. The girl was back to her old self, and her glow came back to her. She seemed like she was in a better place, mentally, and that she was out of that slump in which she fell when diagnosed with body dysmorphia. On top of all that, the girl even started to look healthier by gaining some weight. At first glance, some would say that because of that relationship, and because she gained some much-needed weight, her bulimia was under control. It seemed that all of her troubles were starting to fade away, and she would finally live a normal life. To celebrate this change, her parents decided to take a beach vacation with the family. Skylar looked happy and healthy, and Kim was very pleased with where her daughter was at in life. The entire family had a ton of fun, and everything was better than ever. They even posted a picture of Skylar on a social media platform, and she was smiling from ear to ear. As the relationship between Brandon and Skylar was getting more serious, her mom thought that maybe it was time to get the cheerleader on some birth control just in case. That was a pretty responsible thing to do on her part. After having a little talk about the entire situation, on April 26, 2017, the mother and daughter went to the OBGYN. After they got there, Kim stayed in the waiting room and her daughter went in to see the doctor. But when the girl came out, her eyes were red and swollen, indicating that she had been crying. When asked what happened, she put a smile on her face and told her mom that she only cried because it was her first gynecologist appointment and she was nervous. Her mom believed her because it can be intimidating, especially for a young girl. But as we'll find out, Skylar lied to her mom, and that wasn't the reason she shed some tears earlier. While being consulted by the doctor, he informed the girl that she was pregnant and that in about 10 weeks she'll be giving birth. But this time frame was an approximation because the gynecologist wasn't able to figure out when the baby was conceived. As it turned out, Skylar was already 36 weeks pregnant at the time of her consultation. Before leaving his office, she asked for birth control even though there was no need for it. The girl told him that her mom would be upset if she would come out without it, that being the sole reason they even went there in the first place. The doctor agreed and gave Skylar what she wanted, even though taking those pills during pregnancy could be dangerous. He did have one condition. The doctor made Skylar promise that she would come back at another time, so that she'd receive her much-needed prenatal care. That day, Skylar and her mom went home, and the girl only had one thing on her mind. She would only think about how close she was to giving birth. Of course, she didn't want anyone to find out, but she still didn't have any idea about how she'll hide the moment of birth from everyone. But the worries didn't last long. She had other things to occupy her mind. Just a few days later, after finding out she was pregnant, she went to prom with Brandon. She wore a skin-tight red dress, had the time of her life, and everything went amazing. It was hard to believe that no one noticed that the girl was 8 months pregnant. Not the parents, not her date, not anyone. On July 14, 2017, a few months after the prom, someone came to see her. It was the police. They told her that she wasn't in trouble and wanted to ask her a few questions. They took her to the station after that. The reason they did this was because of a call they received. The gynecologist called the police, saying that Skylar was about to give birth when she came for a consultation, and that something seemed off. Also, there were rumors going around that Skylar had the baby and buried it in her backyard. Upon being questioned by the police officers, the girl told them everything, cracking under pressure. She claimed that 2 months after her initial OBGYN appointment, she said that she did go back to the doctor and told him that she did give birth, but the baby was stillborn. That was the moment the doctor decided to call the police. According to Skylar, her baby girl was born on May 7, 2017, but the child was already dead. She also added that she started having labor pains that morning, but decided not to tell anyone, wanting to keep the secret to herself. From what she said, she gave birth in the bathroom of her house that night. Then Skylar presumably checked if there was a heartbeat, but didn't feel a pulse. The cheerleader then told the police that she tried to do everything in her power to try and save the baby, but nothing worked. After that, she went into her backyard, dug a tiny grave, and finally buried her stillborn baby without anyone seeing her.
This is a terrible situation. You are not the only 18-year-old girl who's been in this situation, that it was too late to have an abortion, and your entire life is about to be. What matters is her, okay? I think that you want to give her a proper burial, but in order to do that, we need to know everything. What's her name? Annabelle. Okay, Sam, it's not calling her Annabelle.
You knew I didn't get the truth, and you still had to carry that weight with you.
I'm so sorry. Is it possible that she maybe breathed a little bit, like maybe, before? Maybe. Okay. What do you do with her? Okay. Okay. Did you hold her too tight? Do you feel like she was breathing when you were holding her and you held her too tight? know. It's all right. It's okay. You can't. It's okay. You were trying. I think that was killed her. Okay. Okay.
When she was interrogated, she insisted on the facts that she did not kill the baby. This problem then became the biggest part of the case. Was the baby born alive? Did Skylar murder her own daughter? Or was she telling the truth? At that time, her parents didn't know anything that went on. So after an hour of interrogating, the police officers informed Kim and Scott about the entire situation. The couple walks into the interrogation room and Kim hugs her daughter. Skylar immediately breaks down into tears, saying over and over again that she's sorry. Skylar also said that she named the stillborn Annabelle, and that the father was the boyfriend she briefly had before Brandon. The next thing on the agenda was for the officers to go to her house and search for the body. They left the station, and surely enough, without any hassle, they managed to identify the small makeshift grave and dug out the stillborn. The baby was brought to a pathologist after to be looked at. As the investigation was taking place, Skylar and her parents returned home. We don't know what type of atmosphere they had in the house from that day on, but we can guess that it was not pleasant. 6 days later, Scott received a phone call. The police contacted her parents, asking for Skylar to come back to the station for more questioning. The girl was scared but went anyway. In the interrogation room, she received some unsettling news. Skylar had been informed that a report from the pathologist had been received, and as it turned out from extensive research, it looked like the baby had been burned before being put in the ground. Upon hearing this information, Skylar started telling the investigators that she doesn't have any idea on that matter, and that she's just as surprised as everyone upon hearing the report. However, her story drastically changed upon the investigators pushed her with some uncomfortable questions. Warning, her next statement will bring chills down your spine, and it will turn your stomach upside down. So, Skylar then says that she did burn the baby. But according to her statement at that time, she confessed to just burning the legs of the baby with a lighter, not touching other body parts. It seemed that it was true. Brooke Skylar Richardson tried to cremate the baby, and the report was dead on. The police officers, as well as her parents, were shocked at the words that came out of the girl's mouth. Kim and Scott couldn't believe what their child was capable of. And according to the video, her dad told her that she should have come to them if she was scared and confused. But it didn't end there. With every sentence she said, Skylar started to change the initial story as well. She also said that the baby was alive when she was born, that she heard a little bit of a gurgle coming from her after the birth. After her confession, she was immediately arrested. She was charged with reckless homicide. Of course, she was taken to jail, but because her parents paid her bail, she was allowed to go home before the trial started. 2 weeks after, the case was presented to a grand jury. At the time, Skylar received new charges, more specifically aggravated murder. Being such a serious charge, in the state of Ohio, this leads to a life sentence. Besides aggravated murder, Skylar was also charged with involuntary manslaughter, endangering children, and abuse of a corpse. Being on their daughter's side, her parents thought that these charges were absolutely absurd. They stated that there was no way Skylar murdered the baby, and it must have been stillborn. With these new charges, Skylar was arrested for a second time, and as it happened before, her parents paid bail and she was freed yet again. Since it was such a gruesome story, the media quickly got a hold of it and spread it everywhere on all platforms. It reached so many people's phones and laptops that it engaged everyone who stumbled across it, and rightfully so. Soon after, people started gathering outside of the courthouse, protesting and demanding that Skylar would get the harshest punishment possible, not wanting to see her get away with what she'd done. But the story didn't end there. As time went on, something happened that shocked the world. Another pathology report came out, and this time, well, it said something completely different. It said that the initial statement was wrong, and after further investigation, it was revealed that there was no actual burning on the baby, and there was absolutely no sign of cremation. Ultimately, this report became a very big part of Skylar's defense. They believed that the girl was forced to give a false confession, because she initially said that she didn't set fire to the baby, only to say the exact opposite sometime after that. So, the lawyers that represented her were clinging to the fact that the girl was made to say whatever the investigators wanted her to say, by means of manipulation. Even though the entire case got turned upside down, the prosecution didn't change its charges. They said that Skylar admitted that she committed the crimes. The cheerleader was placed on house arrest during this time. She said that she spent that time reading books. One of her plans before this entire thing was to go to college at the University of Cincinnati. In July of 2019, the state contacted her lawyers and tried to reach some sort of an agreement. They said that they would renounce the aggravated murder charge on one condition. Skylar had to agree to plead guilty on the rest of the charges. She decided not to take the plea, saying that she will not confess to something that she didn't do. The trial started on September 3, 2019, and the biggest challenge for the prosecution was that there wasn't any evidence of the baby being alive when it was born. Their only evidence was that Skylar herself told them that the baby was gurgling a little bit when it first came out. But of course, she may have been manipulated into saying that also. One argument they had was the fact that she went to the gynecologist 11 days before giving birth. The baby's heartbeat had nothing wrong with it at that time, so presumably, nothing could have happened in those 11 days, and the baby should have been born alive. It was also proved that the girl also took the birth control pills while being pregnant, and it was assumed that that would have created some problems for the baby. Another fact that went against Skylar was that she didn't even want the baby. She kept it a secret from everyone, including her parents and even the baby's father. A new discovery made it clear that Skylar did the unthinkable that day. It was found that instead of doing what a normal person would do when they were just about to give birth, she went online and Googled a bunch of stuff. She looked up how to get rid of a baby and similar searching related to abortion. It was clear that the baby girl was not wanted by her. But she didn't have an option of abortion because it was too far in her pregnancy for her to do that, so they argued that she did everything she could to sabotage the birth of her baby. Another thing also came into consideration. The investigators thought that the vain and image-obsessed mom, who wanted the image of a perfect family, actually knew about the pregnancy. Why is that, you may ask? Well, apparently the gynecologist's office accidentally emailed the pregnancy results to Skylar's mom, and a text was found from Kim, asking what the hell is this email about. Apparently, Skylar convinced her mom that it wasn't true and it was a mistake. But what's worse is that in the time they were discussing the email, her mom was telling her daughter that it better not be true or your life will be over. So the 18-year-old had immense pressure put on her by her mom, who didn't want to ruin the image of their perfect family. In one of the videos from the investigation, it could be heard, "We had a perfect life." These words were said by Kim Richardson. Also, other text messages had been found between the two. They had been sent before the birth took place. It seemed that Skylar was worried about not fitting in the prom dress, and she texted her mom, saying that she hates being like this so much, and that she wants to look amazing again. Another text message, which was sent after the birth took place, said that Skylar was so excited for dinner, and that she was happy that her belly was back, and can wear something cute again. Wouldn't her mom question what she meant by that? Well, a mom that wouldn't know what was going on would certainly ask a follow-up question. So the relationship between the two was very odd to say the least. Unrelated to the pregnancy, a text sent by Skylar to her mom read, "I'm so happy, I lost 20 pounds. And her mom replied by congratulating the girl and saying that she's her hero. If she knew that the girl suffered from bulimia, wouldn't she be more concerned about the whole weight loss thing? This makes us think that the parents were lying when they said that they did everything in their power to help their daughter with the eating disorder. Apparently, Kim Richardson helped her daughter lose weight by giving her laxatives. This procedure is so dangerous, and it does so much harm to the body, that it makes you think what kind of mother she was. But let's get back to the actual case. Remaining on the topic of text messages, Skylar seemed to have texted her boyfriend the night after she gave birth, saying that she's so happy and that she feels so much better. Also, she mentioned that last night was the worst ever. Did Brandon know about her pregnancy? At the trial, the pathologist took the stand and explained that the first report was not correct, and that after some further review, they reached the conclusion that there were no burn marks on the baby. Her lawyers said that Skylar never cut the umbilical cord, meaning that it had become detached during the pregnancy, and ultimately causing the baby to be stillborn. Another argument to the baby being already dead was Skylar's description of the baby, saying it was really white and pale. The last argument they came up with was that Skylar only gained about 15 pounds during the pregnancy, so her eating disorder was still there. Because she didn't give the baby the proper nutrition, it was likely that it died before being born. On September 12, 2019, when it comes to little Annabelle, the family put up a little angel statue in their backyard, right where the stillborn was buried. Kim and Scott said that they go out there a lot and think about how their granddaughter would have turned out. But Skylar did suffer some other consequences of her actions. It seems that she didn't get into the University of Cincinnati after applying a second time. This happened because of her felony charge. Eventually, she went to a local college to pursue her new dream of becoming a lawyer. During her time at college, her own defense lawyers gave her an internship at their firm, and according to everyone working there, she's just a pleasure around the office. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like the video, comment down below your take on it, and subscribe to the channel. Also, hit that notification bell in order to stay up to date each time we reveal a new shocking case. And until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.